Welcome to the Reality Revolution podcast, coming to you from the void through the stream. This is your host, Brian Scott. This podcast is dedicated to the spirits who believe life is meant to be magical and fun. It contains advanced viewpoints for the multidimensional human beings of the 21st century. Here, we venture to share the very mysteries of self and reality. Our primary purpose is to reawaken your sense of fascination and awe towards life, to shatter your rigid belief systems and ways of seeing the world. My goal is to help you hack reality, to unleash your potential and open unlimited possibilities of wealth, health, and relationships in your life, and to explore the very mysteries of the universe. We're realizing now that we are moving into a new quantum age where we become aware of the power of our thoughts to create reality. And this podcast's intention is to go to the very forefront of these ideas, to examine them and understand them. So today, this episode, we're going to review some of the basic principles behind Tufte the Priestess, the new book that has been recently translated by Vadim Zeland. It's kind of a sequel to Reality Transurfing. One of the most popular podcast episodes of mine was when I did a review of Reality Transurfing, and that was very, very small little review. And one of the things that I'm doing is learning about this stuff while I do the podcast. It gives me the ability to educate myself, and hopefully I can help educate others along the way as I learn about this stuff. It's sometimes interesting how much you can learn about something by trying to teach someone else. So I've read this book several times, and I don't know what to make of it. It is very different than Reality Transurfing. It's called Tufte the Priestess. And it's very differently written. One of the things you have to realize after reading this book, and I have not read a lot of Vadim Zeland's writing, is you have to admit he's a great writer. This is a completely different book. At some point, he mentions at the end that it's not him writing and he doesn't matter. He really never talks about himself very much. But he says he is channeling these ideas, but it's not presented in that way. A lot of this stuff is very interesting, and it is very honest. When you hear it, it rings true. And I'm going to go over some of these principles, and I maybe can expand my awareness of this by going through what my aspect of it or my understanding of some of this stuff is. I'll also try to go over some of the methods. He has some really fantastic exercises that I've tried that are pretty significantly powerful, and I just wanted to discuss some of those, and maybe you guys could try some. I would love to have a discussion of this on my Facebook page. We can talk about it on my website at realityrevolution.com. There's comment section under each podcast. I'd love to get feedback on what other people have thought about some of these exercises and ideas. So the final chapter of the book is a review of basic principles, and it is a pretty good summation. So it's a good outline. And so just to talk about some of this stuff, we can start with the idea of the dream space. Now, the book begins as if it's written by this Tufte the Priestess. She's very sarcastic and humorous, and a lot of the information is dense and interesting, presented in a different way. It kind of comes with the idea that we are in a movie and that there is an eternal archive of film scripts that we exist in, and that we are in the script at any given time. But we can actually choose which script to go into. And he even playfully mentions the idea of who is it in this eternity that filmed and made a recording of all these different possible eternities. Well, that's silly for us to even think about. But we have access to this. The Eternity Archive is very similar to the idea of alternative space in Reality Transurfing. A lot of these concepts are similar to Reality Transurfing, but I think they're more processional. And as I read it, the flavor of it comes up a little bit more often. These ideas are profound, and I think as we have discovered with Reality Transurfing, the more you read that, the more you start getting out of it. And so hopefully in our shared group discussion of these ideas, we can all come to a better understanding. And that's what I'm attempting to do with this podcast. So he discusses the idea of the dream space. And it's not a product of your imagination. So you are not creating the dream space when you dream. It is real, and it exists in the form of a film archive. So essentially what you're doing is you're accessing, when you're dreaming, a film archive where everything that was, is, and ever might be stored. So you're not creating this from some bubble of your dream. It's not some abnormal thing that's coming up. The dream is actually a thing that is when you're accessing the archive. When you're in that dream space, in that particular space, you really don't have the power over intention, much like Zeland talks about in reality transurfing, where he gives the metaphor of the dream. You're very much like a paper sail on the water, being controlled by the winds. And that's the difference between outside of the dream. And so it's a very similar concept. And then he goes into the discussion of physical reality. And so he discusses when you're seeing the dream, you're viewing one of these film rolls, and then he tries to differentiate that in physical reality is not that which never was, nor that which never will be, but rather which happens once and now, in the eternal now. Physical reality exists for a single moment, like a frame in a film roll, which moves from past into future. And there is scientific evidence for this. A lot of the physicists that discuss the holographic theory of the universe have tried to actually evaluate the number of frames in a single moment. And there's a lot of discussion about this. There's math behind this, but if you were to break down our reality that we exist in, it's something like 9 million frames per second. Do yourself a favor, if you ever get a chance, go on YouTube. There's some great videos where people experiment with different slow motion methods. And there's a few examples what 9 million frames per second looks like. And imagine that that's what real reality, somebody that was experiencing it in normal time, it's this essential slowness. Each frame is an individual thing that exists without movement. So you can maneuver through the reality through these frames, and that is the idea that he is discussing. So reality is like this multi-layered, like an onion, as he discussed. Only 2 layers are familiar to you. There's the physical reality in which you live and the dream space, which you dream about every night. Sleeping and waking are roughly the same thing. According to him, he's saying they're very much the same, only they take place in different dimensions. That the dream space is just like reality, it's just in a different dimension. Drifting off and waking up, you shift from one dimension into another. So sleep and the awakening that follows sleep are similar in context to things like life and death. Life is sleeping, death is awakening, and not the other way around. So he is making a comment about death here, saying that death is where we awaken, and that life we're sleeping inside the script. That's an interesting commentary. And he does, of course, in this particular, he just makes that as a statement of fact. It's very interesting, very profound. Let's say that again. Life is sleeping, death is awakening, and not the other way around. So he goes on to say that your life, more precisely your essence, your soul, also moves from one incarnation to another. So he is validating his belief in reincarnation. You do not remember your previous incarnations. This is because every incarnation is separate life of your soul, or separate dream, if you like. The presence of your body is not essential to the life of the soul. The soul in the body is just one of the forms in which the soul can exist. The body is kind of a biosuit. It's the idea that we're in this body, but it is not who we are. And this is still consistent with a lot of different religious schools, and does not necessarily in any way contradict with things like Christianity or even atheism. This could still be happening on a scientific fact, that the energy inside of the body is a physical scientific thing, not some spiritual thing. The idea is that there may be some science behind this. So movement and transformation are the fundamental qualities or reality of life. So it's not the single thing that you want, but the movement. And the reason why what we're experiencing is so essential is that there is movement and transformation. Flowers are transforming, bugs are transforming, air is transforming, constant transformation, movement. Everything is moving until there is no more life. Movement is life. The frame moves along the film roll. So we are in this frame that's moving along a film roll. The caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. The butterfly lays its larvae, which in turn are transformed into caterpillars to become butterflies again. And perhaps that's what's happening with the soul in his description. The inner screen is a word that he uses often, and stating when you are lost in thought, which I was just literally right before I said that, and you probably heard that little pause. So how about that for synchronicity? Your attention is wholly immersed in the inner screen. You may be oblivious to what is going on around you and do things on autopilot. We've all driven a car, and then for 15 minutes later, we think back and what happened to those 15 minutes. We've all had activities and duties that we just lost track of time. And that's what he's talking about with the inner screen. Then there's the outer screen. When your attention is busy with something external, you forget yourself and you do things automatically without having to think about it. So the outer screen is when your attention is busy with something external, you forget yourself and you do things automatically without having to think about it. They sound very similar, both descriptions of inner and outer screen. Now, attention, he defines as your attention is always focused either within or outside of yourself, but very rarely in between. And he's giving us the idea that we need to differentiate between the outside and the inside. So you're constantly sleeping. Your attention is used to being glued to one screen or the other without pausing in the middle, especially now in this current age of technology. It's screens. It's the TV screen. It's the computer screen. It's our telephone screen. So in understanding that, we are constantly moving from one screen to another. The result of this is that you have stopped taking any control of your attention. This does not mean those things are bad. It's becoming awake inside those, so it does not obey you, but it drifts randomly about. You are constantly dropping into a non-conscious state. Now, the non-conscious state can be good, as we've discussed, with using the subconscious mind, but the non-conscious state where you are moving into a script and you lose control of reality is different. He goes on to discuss sleep and says that sleep is a subconscious state in which your attention is immersed either in the outer or the inner screen. So in this state, you're helpless and you have no control over yourself or indeed anything that is happening around you. Sleep is an anabiotic state. So that's one reason that you hear a lot of mentioning in this literature about lucid dreaming, because moving from that antibiotic state while in the state of sleep can be very powerful while we're in physical reality to have that understanding. Dreaming is what you see either in the dream space or in the space of physical reality. Reality and dreaming are essentially the same thing. For you are also dreaming reality. Reality is a dream, and dreaming is reality. And then there's a discussion of awakening. In order to wake up either in a dream or in waking life, you must pull your attention away from the external or the internal screen and shift it to your awareness center. He has an awakening method. Maybe we'll have time to talk about the awakening method, which he talks about using to awaken the awareness center. All of these methods are not complicated. They're very simplistic and easy to try out. The awareness center is an observation point, as he describes, from which you can see where your attention is directed in any given moment and what is focusing on. At the same time, you see what you are doing and what is going on around you. Awareness, when you wake up and ask yourself, where am I? What am I doing? What is my attention immersed in? These questions is something that he asks from the beginning chapters for you to ask yourself, to wake up inside of the movie, which is the metaphor that he is using for life. In the moment you ask yourself this question, you awaken and arrive at this awareness point that you can designate this point, and it can give you power over time, just as it does when you do lucid dreaming inside of a dream. When you wake up inside of the lucid dream, one of the techniques is to say, am I dreaming? This happens also while awake by doing this. So in the moment you ask yourself the question, you awaken and arrive at this point. This is me, and this is my reality. I'm aware, I see myself, and I see my reality. And then a stroll through a dream or sleep or in waking life. He explains that enter the awareness point, having said to yourself, I see myself and I see reality. So if you say that beforehand, tell yourself, today I will take a stroll through a waking dream, and then go for a stroll anywhere, to work or to school, in the state of clarity. Try to keep this clarity on a consistent basis. And I'm trying to put together a meditation where we have an awaking clarity meditation. And we can see if we can gather some time in a significant period of time that we can be in this awake state while outside of the dream in meditation. And we'll try to see if we can put some emphasis on the plat chakra, the area he's talking about, the intention center, which we'll talk about later. We're going to discuss a little bit about that. But he goes on to say film characters, and that you're a film character. And as asleep, as in waking life, you are in a film that you're carried by the flow of the script. Your mind is not your own because your attention is not your own. On your stroll, you ought to have noticed that your own attention was constantly drifting away, either to the outer or inner screen. When you were aware, unlike other characters around you who are asleep, you see yourself, you see reality, and can consciously control your will, which you couldn't previously. This is your first step towards a new level of self-control and control of your own reality. This is something he emphasizes throughout the book. Script, the idea of a script, you're led on a certain outer script which weaves into a film in which you are one of the characters. And then there are dream characters. How are dream characters different to living people? They have no self-awareness. They are not aware of themselves as individual personalities. They have no willpower. They are not free in their actions. They are controlled by the script. They have no soul. They are simply templates, mannequins. They cannot say, I am me. They have no self. And he's saying that these people around us, many of them could be zombie dream characters caught up in their own script. So this kind of reminds me of a fantastic book by Robert Sawyer that I totally recommend, where he is talking about the idea of the philosophical zombie. And I will put a link to that book in the notes. But to go forward, you, or rather yourself, is the same thing as your attention. So what you are is your attention. Your attention cannot stay in the awareness center for very long. You have to develop the new habit of bringing your attention back to the center. So that's the idea. We're going to try to create a meditation where we bring our attention back to the center and see how long we can hold that. Now, I've been able to do it for a pretty good hour at a time before I break that state. It's tough to do, and I'd love to hear what you guys think and if you've tried it out. Now, he goes on to say that dreams can be either lucid or non-lucid. In a non-lucid dream, you're dotty and helpless like a rabbit, but all you have to do is start controlling the focus of your attention, and you come to life in a movie, gaining the ability to have it will exactly as you see fit. He discusses triggers. You do not have to try and hold your attention in the awareness center continuously. Meaning and value are to be found in something else, namely your ability to respond to what is going on around you. You need to acquire the opposite habit, not to fall into a dream, but to wake up when something happens around you. Any event, even a slight waft of air in your space, should make you alert. This is an awakening signal. And so he's saying by having these signals, it can keep you in this state of awareness. Well, so likewise, any action you should take should be a reminder to check where your attention is focused. So you take an outer action or an inner action before you do anything. When you wake up, give yourself a trigger. So give yourself triggers throughout the day to constantly remind yourself, anchors. Then he talks about the eternity archive, which I had mentioned before, similar to the alternative space. Same thing for the dream space, which exists in the form of a film roll archive, where everything is stored that ever was, will be, and could be. Source, which is what he's talking about, is source, is the eternity arc. Only the illuminated frame, a momentary impression of physical reality, is truly real. Everything else is virtual, including the past and future, and all that's stored in the eternity archive. So that really makes me think, when we experience reality, we're not experiencing it at the moment. We're getting feedback. So generally, maybe a small little bit of time happens before we get access to that reality. And we're just experiencing that. Just a little delayed response to what is real that we don't actually have access to. So compose reality is a word that he uses. Create your own reality. To compose reality means to determine the direction in which the frame will move. And he's talking about movements and frames more than just visualizations. So he's saying in which the frame will move in the film roll that will be played out. You have the opportunity to do this. Now, I think he's using the metaphor of film a lot because you don't see a lot of mention of the word visualization. I think that he did this on purpose. So he's just saying you don't make the most of the composing reality, just as you don't use your attention control function. You have to compose your desired reality in advance rather than battling with current circumstances. Instead, you try to change the given reality of the current frame. Reality is only reality by virtue of the fact that it has already happened. You cannot change anything that has already happened. So when we are experiencing something now, that cannot be changed because it's already happened. We're just getting the feedback from the reality right now. But this is exactly what you try to do. And that's why you cannot change what is happening in reality. You have to change in the future. Everything that surrounds you consists of that which has already happened. That's profound. You got to start thinking of the future if you want to change it or create it. So he goes on to talk about propelling the frame. As you know, changing the past is impossible. So as we now understand, you may as well forget about the present too, as that has already happened, and it isn't what you could choose. As soon as you focus your attention on it, the plat lifts away from the spine and it's activated. So you begin to focus on the future. Now he talks about the idea of the plat, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit second more. But he's saying that's an energy chakra that's on our back. The exact location we can actually feel. It's like an artificial limb that we have access to. I discuss a tiny bit in my energy podcast. You can see the description there. But he's saying that when we have intention for the future, it's like maybe at one point we were plugged into a big cord right there, and we feel like it's still there, and we have control over our intentions of the future by placing our visualizations in the back of that intention. That sounds bizarre, and I honestly say it sounds crazy, but there is something to it. Try it and tell me what you think. What do you have to lose? What if it is true? The illusion of action, it only appears to you that you are in control of your actions. What is illusory is not only what you think you see, but also what you think you do. You cannot tell that this is an illusion because you are constantly immersed in it. What do you think? Do the fictional characters of films and computer games understand they're in a film? No. Are the mannequins in your dreams aware that you are dreaming of them? Now he uses the word mannequin. And he's saying that we are just mannequins in the storefront and that we can actually walk out of the store, and which would be, and it's an interesting metaphor. Are the mannequins in your dreams aware that you are dreaming them? And so now he asks, or Tufte the Priestess asks, do you know who you are? And he puts that in red, and that's a question and possibly a trigger. You cannot ask film characters this question. You can't ask a mannequin, but there's no point. You differ from the former and the latter, and you are at least capable of vaguely grasping the meaning of the question. And in that, you are capable of having self-awareness. Really, all of these are is a metaphor for self-awareness, and it makes you think of it in a certain way. You are characters in a film script of the life that is happening to you. Rather than living your life, life is happening to you. Neither the mannequin in your dream nor the hero in a film are capable of perceiving the illusion of their actions, or rather the illusion of action. So why should you assume that you're capable of doing so? How are you different to a dream mannequin if you live as if you were sleeping in waking life? Now he talks about habits. And he says, the priestess makes a joke that you are made of snails through the habit of not creating your reality, but waiting and hoping for something to happen, which means that what we want happens very slowly. Will it happen or not? Will it work or not? This is a passive position. From this position, you are capable of just probing reality. And that's all you're doing. The slightest thing withdrawing and saying, I don't have control over it. So he uses the word mold, which is you have to switch into a proactive mode rather than waiting and hoping to create the reality that you want. So he's still talking about creating reality. The mold is the obstacle. He says that there is a mold that's there that will always be there for everybody that's listening to this, to everybody that's reading that book. And because the mold is your little house, new habits and perceptions are developed just as the old ones took root through ongoing repetition. Only from now on, instead of staring at reality and following it, you actively manage the movement of the frame, not the one in which you currently find yourself, but the one that is about to come up. So it's an obstacle because it tells you that this is not true, and it fights you. It's trying to tell you that creating your own reality is impossible. That voice he uses the word mold. Reprogramming that voice is your snail horns in house. So he uses the word snail horns in house as habit and mold. So the habit and this belief that you can't do it, your habits and then the belief in combination that you keep you trapped in the current frame. And in order to escape the trap, you must switch to a proactive mode, not waiting and hoping, and compose the reality you want. If you hope, any of those words distances you from what you want. You compose the reality that you want. You choose the reality that you want. You compose it. You do not beg for it. You do not think, I want to have this. You just choose to have it. This requires a constant practice, as he says, of how to manage the impending frame. So he gives a method. As soon as you find yourself waiting or expecting something, use the intention. As soon as problem arises, use instant plat activation and frame illumination. You need to compose not only the events of which is the outcome is known, but also events which the outcome is already probable. Why do we need an endless repetition? And this idea that there has to be repetition to embed a new program into your snail mold. You will not believe that reality can submit to your will until you experience it for yourself. So the idea, it's a very complicated thing. Learn to wake up and control your attention, develop the plat, switch to proactive mode. But he's making the idea that if you can do small things, that you can have bigger changes in the future. The forthcoming reality, which he puts in bold, although written in the Internal Archive, is always multivariant. So there's many forthcoming realities. They all actually exist. So, and while it's not been ultimately claimed or composed by anyone, so he may be saying that some of these realities are only an information. All right? So, it's composed by anyone. It does not belong to anyone. So if someone comes along and composes it, then it submits to their composition. So some of these scripts could lead to multiple people, he may be implying. And if that someone is you, then it will be yours. But before reality can truly become yours, you have to reprogram yourself, develop new habits and perceptions via a process of multiple repetition. So we go back to the idea of saying affirmations and doing stuff repetitively throughout the day to create a habit, a habitual way of thinking and being, which creates a change. It allows you to not only change reality, but surf through reality as it's changing. Transformation is another word he uses a lot. The Creator conceived you. Now he says that the Creator conceived you to be luminescent creatures, your gaze directed forward. And that makes sense. As so you once were before you became mired in the illusion of action. When you practice composing your own reality, you become gradually transformed from snails into fireflies. When you illuminate the frame, you emit an inner light, and the events you desire fly towards you like moths to a flame. Others around you who are still snails will put their horns out towards you and crawl closer out of curiosity. Concentration. Try without making an effort to illuminate a frame successfully. Concentration is important. He emphasizes the idea that we must concentrate, but not force it. Can you concentrate at least for a couple minutes? And that's what we're going to try to do with this meditation, is do some concentration. So just a minute, then that is all it requires. Follow the illumination method calmly and naturally. And I'll try to go over the illumination method if we find time in this podcast or a future podcast. The reason for this is by applying effort, you trigger the inner intention center. Reality is managed from the outer center. Note that if whilst you are illuminating the frame, your muscles are tense, this means your petty intention is working. You have to work exclusively with outer intention with the plat. This is not something you should be strained or wielded, is what he is saying. He uses the word metapower. This is the flip side of the force. It's the antipody. Normal force works from this side of the mirror, reality, the material plane, while metapower operates from the other side, the subtle plane. And he says that reflection in the mirror reality is on this side, the material plane, while the subject is on the other side, the subtle plane. Physical reality is a reflection of the subject, the image, which is somewhere there on the other side and there in the film archive. There are many variants of the future. So, now, judge for yourself. If the future is located on the other side of the reality mirror, is it possible to somehow have an impact on it using standard force, which only operates here on this side of the mirror is facing? And he says no. So if your attention is focused on what is in front of the mirror, i.e. in the frame of manifestation, then you are completely captured by the script. If it is focused on the other side of the mirror, in the image frame, then you are free to move both yourself and future reality. He says you'll gradually come to understand what metapower is as you come to feel it. Now, honestly, this is a tough thing for me to understand. I do understand that reality is like a mirror, and I would love your comments on what you think he means by this. So the same goes for metapower. He says that you have to feel it and develop it. The plat is your metapower tool. The frame illumination method is an exercise in developing metapower. And hopefully we can go into the frame illumination method. So propel yourself. And he uses the words propel, which goes back to his idea of movement. To propel yourself means to be self-aware and deliberately control your motives and your actions. Within the frame, you will move normally using your arms and legs and physical strength, but you propel reality completely differently with your attention, intention, and metapower. And as we have just discussed, he's repeatedly used the word attention. Attention is clearly one of the key and most important aspects of this particular practice of crafting and shifting realities. Another thing that he talks about is imitating action. The point of imitation lies in the fact that you do not have the right to disrupt the established order of things. So it's okay to imitate action. The established order has that you participate in the action while submitting to the lines of the script. So you can go ahead and do those lines of the script. There's not a single character that can bail out of the film role or do whatever they like within the film. The script is not the product of someone's subjective will. It is an objective reality, and there's no avoiding it. Objective reality is such that you are doomed to exist within it, like characters in a film. You cannot avoid the action, but you can imitate it. You can fool reality. You can continue to play your role as before, as it is written unto the script. You carry out your daily tasks. But unlike the other characters being in a state of awareness, you get something more, the opportunity to replace the current film role. So he's saying keep living your life, doing the things that you do. But the longer that you're awake, it will give you more control and power over it. So you stroll through the film as a character that has come to life, but is pretending to be lifeless, and change the film role as you see fit. No one suspects anything. So he's saying you're kind of nonchalantly just coming in and taking over. Presence in the film. So your presence in the film is above all the presence of your awareness, yourself, your presence as a living, self-aware, conscious individual in full possession of your faculties in an immutable film. Although the film turns dynamically, it is predetermined like the behavior of all its characters. So he says that your presence in the film singles you out as one awakened among those who are asleep. You are conscious of your separateness and are aware of what is happening. Because of this right now, you are awake. And the people out there listening to this podcast, you're awake. Wake up right now in this moment that you're listening to me. So in order to become present, you must come alive. Give yourself a good shake and work out where your attention is placed in the central awareness point or one of the two screens. You are not in control of the script. So he's differentiating the idea that you can create reality, but you're not in control of the script. You will follow whatever script. The script will unleash different results for you. Opposing reality is not about controlling the script, but choosing the film role. Your task is to hold your attention on the frame that is coming next. Go in to that single frame of the film that's moving and choose the next one. The script is, so you have to slow your mind down. You have to become aware in the moment. Let the moment slow down. The more you can slow the moment down, the faster you can switch into a new frame. The script is none of your business. If you try to compose it or resist it, the script will pull you into its trap, trying to influence. So that's very powerful when you think about it, that you are always going to be in the script. You cannot get out of the script. The harder you grip, the tighter it grabs you by the tail. And he uses the reference that it grabs you by the plat. So the plat's like a tail. It is not for you to know what script will bring you to your goal. But the point is that you don't need to know. You're working in a film projector mode. When the goal frame is illuminated by your projector, the course of events itself turns out where you need it to be. The script works for your goal if you set it. And he uses the advantage. He has an advantage technique. You always insist on everything according to your plan, and in so doing, you obstruct the implementation of the plan. By expressing dislike, you involuntarily and unconsciously compose a worse reality for yourself. We've discussed this in other podcasts, but the idea that you are against something can bring it about. That neutral observer effect is powerful because by wanting something, you can bring it, and by not wanting something, you can bring it. So, to avoid mangling your reality, instead turning it into a wonderful world in all regards, you need to implement one simple principle. Seek the advantage in everything. Literally seek and draw out the advantage in any annoying situation, in any event that causes you to respond even a little bit negatively. Look in your mind and create some advantage to it. Set yourself the goal of seeking out the advantage in life. It's a positivity trick. The law has it, if you allow yourself to be guided by the principle of advantage, life will throw fewer and fewer events your way that are damaging. So the advantage method is a way of getting more and more control over damaging events. That's fantastic, and we'll try to discuss that method as well. The allowing is, he uses the word allowing, and he says the paradoxic principle, compose not the script but the goal frame. Your goal is to know the result you want to achieve and compose the corresponding reality, if of that reality, in thoughts, words, and images using the plat. Then the script will lead you and show you the how. So the script is showing you the how. You don't need to worry about the how. You don't need to worry about what's going to make these things happen for you. You just need to go about creating the intention using this particular method. The goal frame. Tracking the advantage is one trigger for awakening. Any event you experience should be something that causes you to be alert, serving as a wake-up call rather than sending you off to sleep. Your task is to wake up, see reality, and compose reality. So the script directs you. Why are you constantly forgetting about your attention? Is it down to absent-mindedness? No. It's because you are being directed by the script. You think you are acting independently, and you know what's what, but this is an illusion, the illusion of action. Let me remind you, it consists in the fact that reality takes hold of you to the extent that you do not notice the illusion and don't realize that you're bound characters in some kind of game. The paradox is that unlike the heroes in the film, you are endowed with the quality of self-awareness. However, you become self-aware only in the moment that you ask yourself the question. The rest of the time, your consciousness sleeps and relinquishes itself to the internal script. So propel yourself. Imagine that you're a character in a film. The film roll is turning and you cannot change the plot, but nothing is to stop you from changing yourself. Do not listen to people who tell you that you must never change. To a certain degree, they're right. You must never lose a sense of your core, your originality, your uniqueness. You are you, and you have your own reality that's special to you. You have to change without changing yourself. Working on self-improvement doesn't mean compromising your true self. Nature originally created you perfect, warts and all, like everyone else. But lack of development leads to degradation. It is a natural law. You should be aware that you need to work on yourself, develop yourself physically and spiritually, unless you want to turn into a shriveled slugs. He talks about this creator spark, and he gives the metaphor that we have a little bit of God in all of us. And that little spark in all of us, we all have a little bit of that, and that power that we can use. And we don't forget that. Whatever your concept of the Creator, we have that spark in us. It could be just simply source. It could be more than that. The dictates of power, having the capacity of self-awareness. You ask the question how and design a whole strategy for achieving your goal based on your own ideas. Yes, in the moment that you ask yourself how, your self-awareness is awakened, but it gets in your way because you are not thinking about the goal, but your own silly ideas on how to manifest it. Several other authors that write about law of attraction also talk about taking away thoughts of the how. The actual thought of how it's going to happen can actually hurt you. And this goes along with his teaching. You need to observe yourself, observe your attention, so that rather than sinking back into the thoughts of your own plan, you follow the barely perceptible nudges from the script as if they were dictates of power. You can sense these dictates of power if you allow them to lead you consciously and intentionally. If your thoughts are focused solely on the goal, the script will lead you to the goal itself. So following your mind should be focused on the end result, the goal frame, not the course of events or the behavior. You can't resist the script, even when you're fully present. All the changes that take place in your reality that occur according to your will are the results of you switching to a different film role. You can't do anything about the script in the current film role. Don't resist the script. By resisting the script, it will suck you in further. Observe yourself and follow the flow of the film roll. Learn to feel the dictates of power and follow the dictates of power. He talks about outer power. You are strolling live through a film when you are present with your attention and move with your intention. Move the frame, but not with your petty intention. Move it with outer intention. Outer intention is referred to as such because it is not yours. It does not belong to you or submit to your will. Outer intention is a kind of power, the engine that is powering reality. Its active component turns the film roll in the way it's destined to turn. You have an access point to this power. You are not an outer power, but you have an access point to it, which is your outer center, the plat. So he is literally saying our access to this power is through this plat. So we'll also try to create a plat meditation where we can really focus on using that particular chakra. If anybody has suggestions before I create this, email me at brian@advancedsuccessinstitute.com or leave a message on the board. We'll try to create a meditation that can focus on awakening and a focus on using the outer center. Power takes you by the plat and leads you through the script as if you were a puppet. But when you are awake, fully present, and take the plat into your own hands, metapower, power's reactive component, is activated. This is what enables you to launch a different film roll, one that corresponds to the frame you're composing. The reality mirror, you always go at things head on, acting from the place of petty intention. When you want people to love, respect, and help you, to give you something, you tend to demand it directly like a child. Love me, respect me, help me, give me. From the outside, this is what the scene looks like. You are standing in front of a mirror, reaching out your hands and shouting, "Give it to me," trying to pull the reflection closer. The reflection responds by doing the same thing, saying, "Give it to me, give it to me." It does not give, it takes away. So in reality, as in the mirror, so when you are asking, "Please, give me," you're taking from yourself. As in the mirror, you always get the reflection of your mental attitudes and the actions as the message, so the response. Particularly when you are expressing a negative response with all your heart. As a rule, reality gives a mirror-like response. If you're super angry, you're super fearful, you will get that back. Choose a different response. Choose a loving response. Composing the image. How do we compose these images that we move into? Now, the first thing you must do in order to shoot your film is to wake up and become fully present. The idea of being in the power of now works perfectly with this. Imagine that you have come to life in a motion picture. Instead of watching the film, you are living in it. Feel it. Open your eyes and look around you as if, for the first time, look at everything afresh. You will notice that the colors are richer. Now imagine yourself to be an objective outsider rather than a film character. You entered the film as an insider. Nobody else knows but you. Your body is inside the film, but your attention is outside it. Feel your separateness, your presence. Then, before you start wanting, expecting, and asking something of other people and realities, you must imagine that you are standing in front of a mirror and asking yourself the question, what must I do for the reflection to meet me halfway? Obviously, you must take the first step. Instead of your usual manner of claiming the larger portion of the cake for yourself and harping on give, you wake up and realize that the reality mirror is simply repeating your movements. This is fascinating. And if you want to receive something, you must first give something similar. It doesn't matter what exactly. Simply replace your give me with the opposite of here, take. And then, as if by magic in the reflection, you will receive the very thing you wanted. This goes all the way back to the Bible and the idea of karma, and what you sow is what you reap. And by giving, you give the idea that talk about building greater karma. And it's always when we talk about that what we give is what we get back. More so. This idea could be based on a very scientific and basic understanding of reality being a mirror. We are receiving a mirror reflection in reality in the most subtle of ways, which is absolutely fascinating. You can control reality, but you can't control people. And he emphasizes this, that we always, there may be a particular girl that you are imagine that you want, or a particular guy that you really would like to meet you, for instance. I would not try to do that because you can't control other people. There may be somebody similar to that person that you will bring to you. But if you try to do any sort of manifestation of a particular person, remember, you cannot control them. Now, if they were meant to be with you, they will. But you have to understand that there's probably something good or better out there. And whatever the situation is, you cannot control people. If when composing the goal frame, you try and forcibly make a certain individual dance to your tune, it probably won't work or will produce the opposite effect. Because you're breaking the rules twofold. You are intruding into someone else's script. So you cannot control anybody. If you have somebody in your life that you're trying to change, that you want to control, you cannot do that. Only your personality reality is yours to play with. Therefore, only you should be the central figure in the goal frame as you imagine yourself in your dreams. You are the star on the stage. You are in the director's chair. You are sailing your own yacht. All the other figures in the frame should be in the background as part of the set design. Trying to carry out these techniques involving specific people is not right. All you can do is have a mirror-like relationship with them. If you want something specific from a certain person, go and see them and communicate with them within the current film, taking account of the fact that the film is mirror-like in nature. There's the inner motivator. You're led not only by an outer driver, the script, but also a certain inner motivation, which is the need for a sense of self-worth and the pursuit of self-realization. And these ideas of self-worth and self-realization, he does mention several times in the book. If you want people to be well-disposed towards you or want something from them, set yourself by the goal of underlying their importance and help them realize their own goals. By helping other people achieve what they want, you can achieve it yourself. And I put a call out. I want to help people achieve their goals because I want to achieve my goals. And by going about helping other people, I believe I can help myself. And that's why I've dedicated myself to life coaching. I love it, not for the payment of it, but the actual process of it is absolutely fascinating. I have helped coach people for free, and I've helped coach people in all kinds of different situations. I do it for the love of it. And it's something that you should try too. You should try to see if you can coach someone else to help them. And I'd love to help you with that. And I can give you some of the things that I've learned in this process. Manipulating others, it is possible to manipulate the conscious of another character in the current frame. So he's saying you can do it. As you're already aware, you are led by both an external script and an inner driving force. The latter, however, to a far lesser degree. This driving force mainly determines the direction in which you move, but you are still set in motion by the script. However, the most greedy snails, either in accordance with their intention or their script, may try to alter the direction your course is taking to suit their own needs. This is manipulation. And he's characterizing manipulation in anybody that you try to change their script. Let people fly as a bird for free. Give them the power to do what they want, but let them be free in their own script. Trying to control someone else's course in the film. This may be, for example, by deception, false values and goals, or by playing on the weakness and needs of others. There's a reason that these things don't work, and it's because it comes back to you. Unlike the mirror principles that do not disturb your course, but rather assist it, manipulators will divert you from your course and use you. Whenever you feel that something is being imposed on you, ask yourself, well, who does this benefit and how? This is very similar to the discussion of pendulums, but it's just talking about sheer manipulation. And it's very similar if you go back to that book. Manipulating reality. Reality has a dual nature. On the one hand, it is a film, and on the other hand, it is a three-dimensional mirror. Both are bound to confuse. The main illusion is that the true nature of reality is hidden. That we don't really actually see reality. You can't see the space of a film strip, and the mirror framework itself isn't visible. But if you know this and you remember it, and the illusion will no longer have any power over you. The illusion of the reality mirror is much more complex than a standard mirror. The space is not split in half, and there is no visible boundary between what is real and what is imaginary. You are at the same time both inside and outside the mirror. The image and the mirror reflection are connected. So does that give us? It means that the image you created became a reflection. The reflection can flow into the subject. In other words, you can turn a reflection into a subject pretending you have something you don't, or that you are someone or you have not yet become. For example, you want to have your own home, you wander around the shops looking at furniture and items to decorate the interior as if you already have the home. I have done this. I've wanted to purchase a house, and then I've gone with a friend of mine and visited with a realtor as if we were about to purchase the house. And the process itself opened up that part of me. So you look at expensive things like cars, yachts, spa resorts, and you look and you separate them. Allow the wealth into your life. Or you want to become a star in some other area or another, behave as if you were already a star. Live that life for now, at least in your imagination. We're going to be having an upcoming episode on the podcast of the as-if principle. And this really captures that. The idea, if you act as if, this can become reality. And there's science behind this, there's statistical evidence behind this, and we will definitely be talking about that more. Composing a reflection. You are capable of composing both an image and a reflection. In the first case, the image appears as a reflection, whereas in the second, the opposite is true. The reflection appears as the image. So first, process, you must put out what you get back. What you give is what you receive, and what you really are is what you have. Second, reverse process as the game, so the reality. What you imitate is what you get. Who you pretend to be is who you will become. And that's moving you through that reality directly. The image appears as the reflection. Composing the image is your way of putting a message out to reality. What you put out is what you have, reversed. The reflection appears as the image. You make believe, and imitation is your way of composing the reflection. Who you have pretended to be is, in reality, the person you have become. All these manipulations with the mirror are what is being referred to when we talk about propelling yourself from within. So the first essential condition is that the game is taken seriously. And the second essential condition is that the game should be consistent. So he's saying, when you're in this, take it seriously and make it consistent in your life. The reason that you do not like yourself, and he gives an explanation that you don't like yourself, is that all the screens and printed covers illustrated the ideals of beauty, success, and happiness. You fall for these illusions, obediently trying to fit yourself into someone else's image, each time coming to the conclusion that you fall short. And so he's saying, don't pay attention to the beautiful actor or actress, the beautiful, successful people. Yet still you prefer to believe in the illusion and try to keep up with it. Don't be jealous when you look at others, and don't be discouraged when you look at yourself. Become like fireflies. Propel yourself from within. Don't look at the reality in which you find yourself living as something that is beyond your control. Instead, compose a new one for yourself. Shift your forthcoming reality by using the plat, and shift your current reality by moving yourself with the images you visualize and reflect. And again, he mentions the plat. Seriously, this is very important. And we'll definitely try to explore this further. And I would love to hear your idea of the plat. Is this the Bindu chakra? Are they separate? Because the plat looks like it's coming from the lower back, and the Bindu is in the upper part of the head. It's behind. He does mention there is a difference between the front part of our body and the back. So this is what is getting you down. He explains that as soon as you have caught yourself waiting for something, hoping for something, being anxious about it, or burdened by something, wake up and be self-aware. You're being led by an external script. If you desire something badly and you really want it, then some external script is making that. That is what's getting you down, is the script. You feel subconsciously that you are not free, that you are dependent on reality, that you are limited by circumstances, like a character is limited by a plot. You may sense it, but you cannot do anything about it because you are not fully aware. You have to get to the point where you truly know that holding out for something to happen or not happen, to work out or not work, is foolish and pointless. Don't wait for your dreams to become a reality. Try carrying yourself into the frame, and clearly that's what works. This is just a very beginning summary of this book, and as you can tell, this is pretty deep stuff. And the more I talk about it, the more new stuff comes up with me. And I'd love to get your guys' impression of this. He goes on to say that there's other different methods and other different techniques that I found that are pretty awesome. And so he goes on to say that replace the habit of wanting with the habit of giving, and replace the habit of rejecting with the habit of accepting, and dropping off with waking up. And don't be afraid. Compose instead. There's a very, very powerful line where he says, the most beneficial habit is that you don't want things of reality to compose reality. The main thing, but with equal importance, derivatives. Don't be afraid. Compose instead. Don't wait. Compose instead. Don't hope. Compose instead. Don't lament. Compose instead. The imitation technique is possible to compose not only reality, but yourself, your mannequin, and at the same time, the mannequin will change. By shifting in turn the film roll and the reflection, you'll become different the way you dreamed of seeing yourself. Once again, the as-if principle. So they go on, and he has compose your own mannequin, which is very much using the metaphor of the mannequin and how you can change right now and change. And you're not rejecting yourself, but you're creating it. You'll become more aware of the self as you do it. He talks about uniqueness, which he emphasized in reality transurfing, that we all have a unique star center in the alternate space. So he says the uniqueness is all you have, but to a great extent, this is more than enough. Uniqueness is perfect unto itself because there is nothing of its kind anywhere else. Is it valuable, that which cannot be found anywhere else in anyone else? Undoubtedly, it is an advantage which you can either use or chuck up to the back of a dusty cupboard. And it's all a matter of choice, but all shortcomings have one paradoxical aspect. If you accept a shortcoming, it becomes a valuable individual quality. If you don't accept a shortcoming and battle against it, the shortcoming becomes a flaw. This is exactly how others will perceive it, either as a valuable quality or as a flaw. If you accept a personal shortcoming, it can transform into an advantage. I just got done watching a bunch of Jack Black on YouTube, and he could easily just get down on himself because of his weight or the way he looks, but he's truly one of the funniest and most interesting people to listen to and talk to, and his uniqueness comes through, and I believe that you can find everybody has a certain uniqueness and a star quality within everybody, and it doesn't matter what imperfections, because we're all perfect. You're perfect, just as nature and the Creator intended you to be. Perfect is when an individual is embodying their uniqueness in harmony with self. Where there is acceptance, harmony appears, and the opposite is true. Any negation gives rise to disharmony, which everyone notices. An obvious vice or weak point that directly harms you, your health and reputation, for example, or the harms of others, should be rooted out. So if you have a problem with alcohol, you should stop drinking. If you have a problem with some particular issue in your life, then you should get rid of it. He's saying that that vice or weak point should be taken care of. A lot of these are simple ideas. Give, and you can get back. Be nice, because it'll come back to you. He's saying these things, and they're all a part of universal truths, that we follow ourselves, that we're all beautiful, that we have this. Now, he says the 3 achievements method. First, don't focus on your shortcomings. Don't dwell on feeling deprived in some way. This is a destructive degradation. The way it is to find your life purpose, your true goal, and then take steps towards it. Your life purpose is your course of self-realization. Without a life purpose, life turns into a mindless existence. You may not be aware of what your life purpose is. The Creator spark that smolders inside of you knows, but it has to be kindled. By kindling inside the Creator spark, working on yourself, you achieve these 3 things. You leave stagnation behind. You find your life purpose. You realize your life purpose. And then he talks about occupying a new mannequin. So let's say you want to have a beautiful body, transform yourself into a charming personality, pleasant in all respects, or become a high-paid professional in a particular field. This means to occupy a perfected mannequin on a fundamentally different film role. Have no doubt that this film role and such a mannequin exist. All you have to do is get there. This goal is achieved via triple action. Propel reality. Propel yourself from within. That is the essential review of what I got out of Tufte the Priestess. Now, there's several methods. Now, we talked about the awakening method. You wake up, and the moment something happens, before doing anything, you wake up. You focus your attention on your awareness center, on the point between the inner and outer screens. And from there, you simultaneously observe your thoughts and happening around you. You can see your surrounding reality and yourself within that reality. Nothing prevents you from watching both screens at the same time. You can do this. And he gives it triggers, inner triggers and outer triggers to do that awakening. The frame illumination method is 1, catch yourself being affected by one of the triggers. 2, wake up. Say I see myself and I see reality. Then 3, you activate the plat, that energy, that invisible limb behind you. Without releasing the sensation of it, compose the reality that you desire. Drop the sensation, the feeling of the plat. If the event is significant, repeat it multiple times. In the same way you track your attention, now keep track of the impending frame. Here are the 3 triggers: expectation, intention, you intend to go somewhere, or problem, something has happened that needs to be dealing with. Whenever you're dealing with something, don't wait or hope, compose your own reality. Whenever you intend doing something, do not hurry to start. Compose the reality you wish to see. Every time a problem arises, once again, don't wait, don't hope, don't fuss, compose the reality that you wish to experience. The frame illumination method is an exercise in developing meta power and at the same time a means of composing the reality that you want. Fascinating. So the next is the plat with flow method. Take an in breath, and on the out breath, imagine the arrow moving at an angle away from your back. Now the plat is activated. Without letting go of the sensation of the plat, compose a picture of your reality. At the same time, make sure that you're breathing freely. 3, without losing the sense of the plat, the arrow, which he says, take an in-breath and out-breath sharply. Send the arrows into a vertical downward position, triggering both energy flows. Staying aware of the movement of the rising and descending energy flows, say the following thought form quietly to yourself or aloud: my intention is being realized. So that bringing energy up your body and down at the same time, and then say my intention is being realized. Then let go of all sensations you have been working with. What is happening when you do this? You are not only composing your own reality with the help of the plat, you're putting your intentions as a message to the universe. In this way, the energy flow strengthens the work of the plat. If this technique works for you and you enjoy it, you can use this variation of the exercise all the time. And then he talks about the advantage method. The advantage method is catch yourself at the non-acceptance trigger. Wake up. Say, I see myself and I see reality. Ask yourself, what is the advantage in this? If an answer comes to you, accept it and take the advantage. If no comes to you, try to accept the idea of the advantage anyway. He's just simply saying, create a trigger, wake yourself up, and then try to find an advantage in your situation. Every event or situation, whatever its nature, has a positive side and a negative side. Essentially, very simply, he's saying, try to find the positive in everything. Adopt and integrate one principle. Seek out the advantage in everything. And it's a little more complicated than what you think, but just start repeating this. What is the advantage in this situation? And I think it's very powerful. So the following method is catch the moment you control trigger, wake up, then you ask yourself, what is the first dictate telling you? If you are awake, and then if an answer comes to you, follow the dictate. If no answer comes to you, compose the goal frame and try following it. Being endowed with self-awareness, you are constantly asking the question of how. And then you conjure up a whole strategy for achieving what you desire. Yes, in the moment that you ask yourself this question, your self-awareness awakens, but it hinders you because in your mind, rather than holding sight of the goal, you're focusing on the silly ideas of how to achieve it. What you must keep in mind is not a specific course of events or people's behavior, but the end result, the goal frame. So the advantage method seems pretty simple. And then there's the image method. As soon as you find yourself wanting something from someone, wake up and stand in front of the mirror. What do you need to do for the reflection to meet you halfway? Give to others what you'd like to receive. Catch yourself thinking, I want other people to give me something. Be fully present. Wanting is futile. You have to give. What can I give is the same. If you find something similar, give it now and give it up front. If you don't find something similar, just give anyway. So he has fun time with friends, listening carefully, people socialize with you. He has a whole set of examples, and I recommend you read those in the book. So the other is the reflection method. In a three-dimensional mirror, the subject and the reflection are connected. So what does this give us? It means that the image you can create become a reflection, and the reflection can flow into the subject. In other words, you can turn a reflection into a subject, pretending you have something you don't, or that someone you have not yet become. So the idea of the as-if principle, or the idea of giving by looking, but the idea of the three-dimensional mirror is fascinating. Imagine a three-dimensional mirror. So he says that gradually the picture of reality will attune itself to your make-believe, and what you make-believe becomes reality. And then finally, the design synchronization method, which is you are created according to your DNA pattern, the design which locating the information in space you can adjust. The design can change for the better or the worse, depending on your condition. Condition refers to your sense of self, who you really are, warts and all. Your condition is more than a passing mood, it's your sense of self. So regardless of the initial parameters of the design, you can turn from a darling of fate into a very unattractive brat, or the opposite, transform from an ugly duckling into everyone's favorite. If you drift, weak-willed, along with the script, like the incompetent characters of a film, you will fly. If you are fortunate, and you will fall. If something goes wrong, the fact is that you either control your condition or it is controlled by you. You should intentionally choose your condition. You shift into a new condition by carrying out 3 types of movement. But for now, this new condition is nothing more than the imitation. In a genuine condition, your thought forms are transformed into thought markers. Every day I get closer to achieving my goal. Really, I do everything brilliantly. My professionalism is growing. I really am getting physically fitter. And you say these things, and you can create a synchronization. You carry out all 3 actions separately or simultaneously. You observe carefully and avidly grasp any confirmation of your success. As soon as you see a sign of success, activate the plat and consolidate the shift with the thought marker. Constantly activate the plat is what he's saying to do. And then the final technique is the integration action stroll method, composing a new reality and yourself within it. Pretend that you already live in that reality and you are already that new self. And of course, create that new self, fan the creator spark. It's a very simple idea. And the idea is that you start acting like you're in that reality. Imagine that you have all the memories that you would have for that reality. Imagine that you have all of the different experiences that you would have to create that reality. If you want to live a billionaire's life, act for a little while as if you are a billionaire in this moment. And that is difficult for people to do. There's a part of our subconscious that doesn't believe it. Start experimenting with acting as if that you are things that you are not. Get used to this idea. This is one reason actors are so good at manifesting and creating realities. Seriously, meet a really good actor and you will notice that they have incredible lives and are able to manifest incredible realities. And this is the reason there's something to it. So those are some of the ideas I got from the book, and I really hope that you get a chance to read it. Hopefully this helps summarize some of the ideas and you can apply some of them in your life. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this stuff. I'm still learning this stuff. It took me a couple of reads just to do this. And a lot of this, I'm giving you Zeland's words and I'm giving you my thoughts on it. But I think it's very fascinating and I'd love to discuss this more. A deep discussion of this stuff would be fascinating. Feel free to go on my page on Facebook, on the Reality Revolution group. You can also go to the website, therealityrevolution.com. We have all of the podcasts and full transcripts completely printed out, and soon we'll have a YouTube broadcast of every single podcast that we've done so far. You can find all of that there. If you want coaching, I'm available to coach you. I would love to coach you. I don't know your situation. Right now, I pride and prize my time, and I've limited my coaching business, and I only want to take very serious clients or ones where I can transform their lives in a way that is important to me. So you can email me at brian@advancedsuccessinstitute.com. You can also email me at events at advancedsuccessinstitute.com if you'd like to be put on our list for future events. And if you would like, we can also create guided meditations for you. And you can check out the website advancedsuccessinstitute.com if you're interested in further coaching opportunities with me. We will have group meditations, we will have live broadcasts soon, and brand new shows on our YouTube channel, so check those out. The YouTube channel under Brian Scott has begun. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you spending the time with me, and I really, really hope that all of the information I've given you helps you out, and I would love to get your feedback. And if you have any ideas or things that you want me to talk about or questions that you have, I would love to address those in another podcast. Feel free to message me on Facebook. If you want to message me on Instagram, you can do that at The Reality Revolution, _reality_revolution. You can also get me on Twitter at Media Prime. It is such a pleasure to talk to everybody, and I can't wait to talk about this more. We have so many awesome episodes and meditations coming up in the future. I hope you all have a blessed, fantastic, super day or night, wherever you're at and whatever you're doing. Thank you for joining The Reality Revolution.